Good afternoon, Westwood, and welcome to the Wolverine Report, episode 36. Joined as always, Evan Cardimino, co-host, Charlotte Lynch, technical director, Marie Fiscaldo, social media, and I am Morgan Donahue. And folks, we have an absolute terrific episode for you. An amazing story in Westwood if you've been tuning in the last year and a half, tuning into the national championship game, one of our own, one of Westwood High School's own, Joseph Vinci, the pride of Westwood, Massachusetts, also TVL Large captain, done in historic fashion at Westwood High School. Amazing game, by the way. But we are delighted to have you. Joe, how are you? And thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So Joe will now mark the third Vinci that we've had on here. So we've had the Vinci men, all three Vinci men. And what a story to tell amongst all of you guys in Westwood, you know, when it comes to TVL championships, when it comes to memories, you know, and things like that. But wanted to just, you know, right off the bat, what a season, man. It was unbelievable. And, you know, if you look back at kind of how it started and, you know, how far you went, my goodness, in your wildest dreams, could you have imagined how everything unfolded?
Really, no. I think the season starting out the way it did, my position where I was in the depth chart, you know, it was one of those things where it's just like, all right, I'm going to have to put my head down, work. If I get an opportunity, make the best of it. And then, you know, didn't make the travel team to start out. So first game at A&M, you're on the highest of highs. And then week 2 comes around. Okay, we're playing NIU. I might get in the game. And then it's like, oof. You know, like that's probably – not probably, that is the worst loss you can ever experience when you're getting booed out of your own stadium. But it was definitely a journey. You know, it took a lot of trust in our team, our leaders, our coaches to, you know, get where we ended up. But I think that just speaks to the character of, you know, our leaders, our coaches, and the work that we all put in when, you know, you're the laughingstock of college football.
Yeah. I mean, incredible. I mean, that was a tough loss, and that was, you know, certainly talked about. That was like ESPN revels on that, where, oh my gosh, you know, let's talk about this. You know, Northern Illinois beats Notre Dame. To get past that and to go on, you know, the run that you guys, it takes exceptional leadership. You know, to basically put that behind you and to just say, the only thing that matters is us in this locker room. Whatever people say outside, that doesn't matter. You know, who were the people that, you know, were most vocal and that, you know, really put the train back on the tracks to build that momentum? Because that was early on in the season. And you guys didn't, you know, lose a game, you know, since then to get into the playoffs and then obviously get into the national championship game. Who were some of those players or coaches that, you know, were getting you guys, you know, focused?
Yeah, definitely. You know, obviously Coach Freeman, like he's one of those guys who will take all the blame. And, you know, it was from then on, that point on, like every single game was a playoff game for us. And, you know, at that point we weren't ready to handle success. So it really just took focus on this game, everything we can do to prepare ourselves. And our captains, Jack Kaiser, Ben Morrison, Riley Mills, Riley Leonard, Xavier Watts. Pretty sure all those guys have a stint in the NFL right now.
Legends.
But, like, those guys really made sure that, you know, we were on our track and that we weren't crushed by one loss because we knew as a team, like, you know, it's just one more game, one game at a time. And eventually, you know, we get to USC and it's like we just got to punch that ticket after that game.
And talk us through, so you mentioned early in the season you weren't even on the travel roster. So you were basically a preferred walk-on for Notre Dame. And you had you obviously had, you know, guys in front of you on the depth chart. Eventually you got your way into the Navy game, and then you never looked back since then. But before that, you know, those are tough times of, like, you don't know if you're going to travel. You don't, you know what the situation looks like, the landscape. And you got to have a great, you know, core of people who are just saying positive things. You know, who are in that core that are just keeping your mindset focused on, hey, control what you can control, you know, getting better each day, and where when you had that opportunity, you seized it and you crushed it.
You know, I'd definitely say that starts at the family level for me. Both my parents, hardworking people, and so they always supported me. And even going into college, they said, go where you want, we'll make it work. So I knew that having their trust was important, and it kind of allowed me to do that. But also, like, Notre Dame as a whole, like Coach Freeman's big thing is delayed gratification. Like, you got to be, like you said, opportunity might arise. You got to be ready for it. But, I've had some awesome teammates in the special teams room. Reno Monteforte, he did field goal snaps this year. He's off to Cal now, but truly just a selfless leader. Like, I'd be having struggles here and there. He'd coach me back up, and really that's something rare, especially when we're competing for a job.
And you guys are like a family, the specialists, when it comes to the punter, the holder. The holder's typically like, one of the quarterbacks or whatnot. But punter, the long snappers, sometimes you have field goal kickers and then just place kickers, ones who are just doing the kickoffs. Is that like a family unit, all of you guys, when you're, going through it week over week, week in, week out?
Definitely. This coming summer, I'm living with a current kicker, and then my buddy who's the holder this year. He's staying and working around. So those guys, we definitely have a tight-knit group and very family-like. We bicker, we argue, we, have all that stuff. But it really does take everybody in that unit because, at our level, special teams and being a specialist, you're really only noticed unless you're doing really good or if you're a snapper, if you mess up. Yeah. So we got to make sure that, when we go out there, it's only for maybe 10 plays a game if you're doing it all. And you got to make sure that you take advantage of that and perform to your best abilities, because you got guys out in the field who are playing all game, like Riley Leonard jumping over defenders.
Putting it all out there. Yeah. And one thing I wanted to give you a shout out to, so you mentioned obviously the specialist, it's like a family, and the long snapper for kicks and field goals and extra points going to UCLA. Yep. You were one of the first guys that were like so happy for him, and like that support is awesome, and just so it seems like as if you were supporting Mario, so I mean it just, and it's got to be something special too, because you guys have what it feels like in that role, and how much pressure there is on the line, for these are big plays. Special teams is a third of the game, and most of the big plays, do happen on special teams, the ones that are, in my opinion, game changing. So that was pretty cool. I saw that, and it was really cool that you were giving a shout out to him, and he's going to probably crush it over at UCLA. What a fun
definitely.
School. Some good weather out there too.
Oh yeah, definitely not South Bend.
No.
You mentioned, long snappers typically get, 10 plays a game. And special teams, obviously, it is a third of the game, but, you don't get as much time as offense, defense. So how do you handle that pressure when you have only a few plays and you're in a crowd full of 80,000 people? How do you handle that pressure when you're on the field, especially early on as a freshman walk-on? Yeah,
it was definitely a little bit difficult for me to handle that the first week. Whether I'd be doing way too much on the sideline, exhausting myself. But at the end of the day, you gotta trust your preparation. And for myself, and I know a lot of other snappers, it's not just like, okay, I know I'm gonna snap a good ball. It's the second I get over that ball, I'm taking my deep breath, doing the same stuff I do, and really just focusing on the moment rather than the outcome. Because the second you start focusing on, oh, don't mess this up, like, that's not when good stuff happens. So you just got to be waiting for that call or waiting for that flash, and then after that it's go time, and I kind of just go on autopilot from there. That's what your dad was saying, and it kind of reminds me of golf, where you got a 5-foot putt. You're just focused on your pre-shot routine, and it's like, how do you do that same thing over and over and over again, rinse and repeat? How much of, especially the big games. I mean, I was in Cleveland watching it live with my boss. Shout out Pat Manley, big Notre Dame fan. And they were, if you had Mike Griffin standing behind the punter, he'd be going strike. After all of them, they were right down the middle and they were perfect. But I'd have to imagine. I mean, you've done that so many times. You have a high confidence in your abilities where, you're just waiting when when obviously the snap is called, and then boom, you're doing it, snapping it, and it's just so routine. Am I
correct in saying that you've done so many snaps that it's just so routine at this point of just muscle memory, and it's just at that point you're focused on getting, keeping the outside, the outside factors at bay.
Yeah, I mean, that's really all it is. I mean, I've done it countless numbers of times at practice, and those reps you get in practice, they're really valuable. So in a single period, or pump period, we might get 5 snaps.
Yeah.
So like being able to treat those like a game rep, really, really important. When I first started out, I'd be more nervous at practice than in games.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like, I'm finally with the ones now. I'm kind of
yeah.
But you just gotta trust that you're gonna do your job.
Yeah.
And you gotta have that confidence too. Like even if you're not always there, I gotta walk up to every snap whenever I get that. Once we get the call, it's like, all right, I'm the best at what I do, and now I just gotta go execute.
Was there a hurdle you had to overcome? So when we had Don Varner on, he said, I feel like I need to prove myself again. I'm at college, Division I, public school. Like, I got to go out and do that again. Did you feel like you had to prove to yourself, even rebuild confidence, knowing that, I can do it at this level as well?
Yeah. Navy was definitely, like, first snap perfect.
Yeah.
My second one, we were up, like, I don't know, probably 30, 40, and I dropped it pretty low, scarily low. And that was kind of like, okay, obviously you don't want that to happen, but learning moments like that, kind of go back to the drawing board, like, all right, what do I need to change in my routine? How can I be better? And it really was like just don't mess this up kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I would say, like when I got there, I was really banged. Like I messed up my thumb.
Yeah.
Obviously.
This was like December, by the way, too.
Yeah.
So he was there basically your senior year in December.
Yep.
Graduated early? Or?
Yep.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, injured the thumb, and then, had to kind of overcome that to then get right back in there with the guys.
Yeah, I mean, this actually happened back in camp in high school. It was a sprained thumb, right?
Lingering.
Yeah, Paul was like, all right, go get an x-ray.
Yeah.
Do that. All right, good. Midway through the season, go get another one. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Still hurts me by after Holliston. They're like, oh, you know what? You might need an MRI. It's fractured, dislocated.
Oh, yeah.
So that was definitely a big hurdle. I didn't really know anybody on the team when I got there. Anybody in the dorm, anybody in school. It was probably like -5 when I moved into the dorm.
Yeah.
So that was really challenging for me, being away from home for the first time. But like, you just kind of, I got embraced with open arms there with the specialist group. And, after a couple of weeks, I was like, all right, this is where I'm meant to be. And I don't see myself heading anywhere else anytime soon.
And Notre Dame is a very historic program, one of the best programs probably in all of college football. Year in, year out, it's a great program, competing constantly. What is a game day like on campus? Talk us through your pregame routine and some of the traditions that you go through, and how special is it to be a part of that on a historic field like that?
Oh, it's really special. So for my first ever Notre Dame game in Notre Dame Stadium, NIU, right? So I didn't travel. I'm in my dorm room, and it's about, 7:30, and you hear shipping up to Boston, and people are running around banging on doors, waking people up. I'm like, oh, great, here we go.
Yeah.
Shortly after that, I got going. I'm like, all right, I'm out of here.
Fired up, yeah.
So, but typically, we wake up at the hotel, do our meetings, do all that. Then we usually get ready to head out. We do a final team meeting, little hype up video. We're all dressed up. We head to the Basilica for our pregame mass. And then we do our player walk to the stadium, which is really neat. It's usually lined with all sorts of fans and stuff. And that's where really when it starts to hit you like, dang, like this is it.
Yeah. This is a lot different than taking on Ashland.
Yeah.
This is that's incredible.
Yeah, so after that, we kind of get to the stadium, get dressed up. I mean, the band, like, I love the band. I took intro to jazz in the fall, so my teacher, Professor Dwyer, is the director of the band.
Shout out Professor Dwyer.
Yeah. So it's just very special to be a part of that. And then, as always, we do our Father.
Yeah.
And then after that, we're kind of out in the tunnel. And, yeah, I smoke goes up and kind of run through there.
Yeah.
One time I almost got tripped up. The smoke was a bit too much. You're like, oh, where am I going?
Yeah.
But game days are super special there. I mean, bunch of tradition. Actually never really went down the tunnel that much.
Yeah.
Freshman up and out the top of the tunnel.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so you got to kind of earn the stripes of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, could you go down the tunnel later in the season? Yeah. You earned it then.
Yeah.
So we mentioned Navy was when you got in your first action, first snaps. And, since then you had gotten, into more games. So how did you earn more snaps? Was there just something that coach saw in you? Was there a look? I'd imagine being a guy who can make a tackle out there is a huge plus too. How did you earn it? Because, I mean, they always say it. How did you earn more playing time? But how did you earn more responsibility out there?
Yeah, I think it really all stems from consistency at practice.
Yeah.
Start of the season, start of camp, I was taking 3s reps the entire time. Worked my way up to 2s, and then, stuff just kind of happens. So got that opportunity, and, practice went well. I was shown that I could kind of handle, the pressure of that.
Yeah.
And, even like I obviously didn't have a great snap against Navy, but, I continued to just kind of move on. Thing is like you can't let your
don't beat yourself up.
And you can't let your past mess ups affect like the now. Even in practice, like you might have a bad snap, but it's like you got 3 more right after that.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's really takes we have a sports psychologist, Joey, who works with us.
Yeah.
Specifically the specialist. So we always meet once a week during the season. And so just reinforcing some of the things he says, like, just move on.
Yeah.
Our big thing as a team is reload. Like 5 seconds of play.
Yeah.
All right, next one.
Yeah. And, I mean, these are stuff he's teaching you, too, that are probably consequential for life. I made a mistake. How to put that behind you, how to, not make the same mistake twice.
Yeah,
things
100%.
like that. And if I have this right, too, your first ever collegiate snap, there was a fumble on the play?
Both snaps against Navy resulted in fumbles. Yeah.
And we have a great clip of you celebrating when the refs confirm Notre Dame ball, or 96, with the arm out. It's hysterical. But what a way to start your collegiate career.
Yeah, it was exciting for sure. I saw that ball pop out. I'm like, oh.
And I think Donahue had it up on Instagram probably 30 seconds later. He was tagging us, and I'm like, let's go. But incredible. I mean, you earned that opportunity, and you took full advantage of it.
Yeah.
One thing that I mentioned, is very unique for you is a guy who, played linebacker, played, both sides of the ball in high school, a guy who is a good, sure tackler, a guy who can get down there. As a long snapper, most teams, it's kind of a free release, after that snap, and you are like, that's an intimidating presence if I'm the punt returner and I'm seeing this 6'5" guy coming down, downhill. But you had your first tackle against Virginia, and Grandma and Grandpa were there.
Yep.
How special was that?
That was really cool. I believe Florida State, I had just missed him. I was kind of the first one down there. I'm like, oh, all right, this ain't great. But yeah, that was really special. Especially just having them there. I believe that was their first. Well, I know it was their first game watching me at Notre Dame Stadium.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was really cool to get on the stat sheet for sure.
I remember Dad saying like that was the one game he missed. I think.
Yeah.
One of very few, and he's like, but the grandparents are there, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So you were doing punts you were long snapping the punts last year.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to be picking up more action when it comes to like extra point and field goals for this year?
Yeah, I'm going to be taking those over as well.
Nice.
Obviously, still got to earn my spot every day at practice. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And do you look at each practice as you have to prove yourself during each practice? I mean, you have a bad practice and you can feel like you're moving down on the depth chart, or someone's moving up closer to you. Is that, kind of the mindset you have when it comes to the practices?
I would say I don't really take into account like much of my other buddies, like my snapping buddies, my teammates. It really is me versus me. I'm only going to get in my own head if I'm worrying about what they're doing or if they're snapping well and I'm snapping bad or whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's really the mentality of, I got to be better than I was yesterday. Whether, I have a good day at practice or not, like I got to find a way to get better and just continue to build and stack days like that.
Yeah. Getting rid of the noise,
and
focus on what you can control. That guy's doing his job well.
So you're also a student athlete, and the first thing that comes to that is student. So Notre Dame is a great school as well. How do you balance academics with the practice schedule and the playing schedule of D1 football?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's definitely a lot. So my first semester we have study hall, so all freshmen are required to go to study hall for 6 hours a week. So 2 3-hour sessions or 3 2-hour sessions. So that was good, kind of getting me into the rhythm of it. But you really have to have good time management. Professors there overall at the school, I would say, it's not a good easy school to get into, but they definitely take care of you. They're not there to embarrass you on an exam or something like that. So office hours, taking care of business that way, and making sure that school's not a distraction come Saturday is definitely a big thing. And obviously, I take summer classes as well. Nice. So I'm going to be graduating soon, most likely.
Yeah, you got a head start. You know, that's pretty cool. I'd imagine a lot of your professors are fans, fans of the program and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's probably cool coming to class and, a great win, hearing stuff like that. What a unique opportunity where you play for a team like Notre Dame. You're going to you're playing some of the best teams in the country. You're going all over the country. And you're also playing at not necessarily their home fields. Sometimes they do the neutral sites, where, sometimes Miami will play where the Dolphins play, whatnot. USC will play, the Coliseum and whatnot. How special is that to be able to travel when you were a part of the team where you were traveling with them? How special was that opportunity? And, what were some of your favorite, locations, stadiums to play in? And we'll follow through with what were some of the ones that did make the cut.
It was awesome being able to, I see that place on TV all the time. And, you can be in the stadium, like sometimes we'll, like during the playoffs, we'll practice in them beforehand. But being in a stadium when it's live and full is just, you got the band rocking, fans going crazy.
Yeah.
It's something different. And, MetLife Stadium was cool.
Yeah.
My personal favorite,
Yankee Stadium too.
Yankee Stadium was awesome.
Wow.
That was really cool to play over there. Obviously not a Yankees fan, but
so who'd you guys play at MetLife?
We played Navy.
Navy, okay.
Yep.
So that was a neutral site.
Yeah.
But you guys, I'm thinking of some of the NFL stadiums you guys played. You played down in New Orleans.
Yeah,
Great
New Orleans. That was probably my favorite.
The Georgia Dome.
Yep.
That's nice.
Mercedes-Benz twice.
The Mercedes-Benz. So great. You guys played in a lot of domes, which is cool.
They get loud.
Does that have any impact when it comes to long snapping? Do you like the the domes instead of inclement weather or anything like that? How does that fare?
Yeah, you know what you're gonna get there. So luckily, I obviously don't like when it rains.
Yeah.
We didn't have any very rainy games, but it gets pretty windy up in South Bend, so it can definitely affect punts, kicking as well. So I think being in the domes definitely does make a difference, and is a little bit of an advantage. But Mercedes-Benz, we played there twice, so I actually traveled for the Georgia Tech game, and then we ended up there for the national championship. The Superdome in New Orleans was like crazy loud.
Yeah, I bet.
Probably one of the loudest environments like I've been in.
Yeah.
And then I think those might have been the only two.
Yeah.
Hard Rock's awesome, like the NFL stadium as well.
Miami too, during like, freezing cold season, where you just get away and you're like, oh, thank God, and away from the snow. How do you prepare for those? Like, so Belichick, when it came to like Patriots playoff games, like he'd blare like music, to just kind of make the experience as similar or as close to as he could to get his team prepared for the environment. If it was going to be a inclement weather game, he would douse those footballs in, buckets of water.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for these, these crazy pressure playoff games? You had the Sugar Bowl, the Orange Bowl, National Championship, all, right after each other. And it's going to be loud as heck. Was there anything that you guys did ahead of time to prepare for just the noise and, might not be able to hear each other, snap counts, things like that?
So for those games, we didn't really change a whole lot, actually.
Yeah.
So during our summer conditioning and fall camp, we had one, we call them team runs on Friday. So you'll lift in the morning and then you get worked on Friday afternoon. So they put us in our indoor facility, closed it all up. It was insanely hot and humid.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
And they were bumping Texas A&M's fight song at full volume. And once we got out of there, my ears were like, "Oh wow, I'm not hearing so clearly right now." But we'd have what we call chaos periods during practice, during our fall camp. So music comes on, you can't hear anything, so you kind of just have to. Everyone's got to be able to focus. So coaches will be pulling guys in and out, just like that. So I feel like the noise, kind of once you progress through a season, it doesn't really become a major problem, I would say.
So the prep was already kind of ingrained in you guys well before playoffs and whatnot. Interesting.
And you play for Coach Marcus Freeman, who just got Coach of the Year. And he seems like a great leader, a great coach. Obviously, those tactics work. They got you all the way to the national championship. Talk to us a little bit about Coach Freeman and what it's like playing under a leader like him and what you enjoy best about playing under Coach Freeman.
Yeah, he's definitely awesome. He's a, crazy good leader. He's kind of been in our shoes. He obviously was a linebacker at Ohio State. And one thing, I really appreciate about him, so he actually runs our punt team.
Does he?
Yep. So I'm a big piece in that, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's a really big honor for me. And everything he does 100%. Like, there's no shortcuts with him. And, he really trusts his people that we have here. That's one of his big pillars here is trust beyond knowing. So, like strength coaches, he trusts them. Like if we're, say, they got trackers on guys, we don't get them. We don't really. Once we're done, we gotta just hang out, do a couple drills. But once they kind of start surpassing stuff, it's like, all right, we got to relax now.
Yeah.
And I think his ability to have us prepared is really, and it's a big family there. Like he takes that into account, and obviously like my family trusted the coaching staff and him to allow me to go there early. Yeah. So,
I mean, he seems like an exceptional leader. I mean, in the example you said about him taking accountability after the Northern Illinois loss, I mean, that trickles down. And if you have people that take accountability, you're able to move on quicker. Yeah. And you're able to just move on and focus on it. But it's also you have respect for someone who is, says, hey, my bad there. That's leadership. And what an exceptional leader. And people stay. A lot of people stayed, playing even with uncertainty, and things around positions. They want to play for this guy, and they want to win, and guys who could have probably gone to the NFL stayed an extra year, knowing that this guy is, there's some good things that this guy brings to the table. And he was, I think, Coach of the Year by 3 different things. They have a bunch of different Coach of the Year awards, but he won most of them, if not all.
Yeah, he embodies, like, for us, he embodies what it means to be Notre Dame, and that's not something that we take lightly, and that's not something that's easy. You could go to some places where academics may be, a walk in the park, but here it's definitely not like that.
Yeah. So we had the great opportunity to have your dad on, and talk about his playing days at Westwood. We talked a little bit about Notre Dame. We had Buck on as well.
Yep,
and
I saw that.
They were talking about they love just going out. And Buck's been like a diehard Notre Dame fan since forever,
Definitely.
I've been Facebook friends with him for, a while. He was my JV coach years back at Westwood.
Really?
And but he would always be posting about Notre Dame. So, I mean, when, his close buddy's son goes there, it's like, what a match made in heaven. How cool is it after a game when you see those beauties? You see Buck, you see Fairmonti, you see Griffin, you see Jowdy, seeing all those guys, coming out to see you, support you.
Oh, it's hilarious. It's so awesome. Those guys are great. And they actually did like an all guys trip out to A&M.
Yeah.
So they definitely have fun with that. I believe there's another one in the planning for those guys to get out to Fayetteville against Arkansas. But they're a bunch of great guys, and having their support is awesome. Or, I'll get the occasional text when we're away of, all them at the house watching the game. So it's something that's really cool.
That's so cool. I mean, that's what makes it special is what I said to your dad. I said, what you're doing is so special. Like, you know what it's like to sit in traffic on 109. You know where to get the best ice cream in town. You go down to Bubbling Brook. You know what it's like to sit in traffic leaving the high school and waiting for everyone to take that turn on Manhattan. And sometimes it can be a while, right?
Yeah, true.
You know what it's like to be from Westwood. And when you're out there on that national stage, you're representing the town of Westwood. We couldn't be more proud. It is so cool that we're a small, humble town. And we have this kid who is a bright star shining on the national stage with all the pressure in the world, and this kid's pitching strikes. But I was telling your dad that, and I think I could speak for the town how proud we were. What you did this season. Just obviously, looking forward to next year as well. But really, really cool. But I do got to ask you because we mentioned it to your dad during when we spoke with him is. We used to joke around during I think we did 3 out of 4 games live. Or
we did 2 out of 3 live. The only game we didn't do live was Hopkinton. But we did Ashland and actually no, we did Framingham.
We did Framingham.
But yeah, we had 4 games, so 2 and 4.
So we would joke around every now and then. We'd say because your brother Mario, captain, had an exceptional season. He balled out. On both sides.
100% did.
And the best is when he'd do his celly. He'd be doing a dance and whatnot. And we did get confirmation from Joe that was definitely a touchdown, Mario, on that block punt. There's no question about
Agreed.
that. But we used to joke around after a big play. We'd say, "Big brother Joe is watching from South Bend, Indiana," and rumor has it that you were following along live.
So
are we right?
All my buddies would be sitting I'd be in the common room in the dorm on a Friday or Thursday. I think there was one Thursday game.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, head start turning. They're like, what are you watching over there? I'm like, I'm watching my brother's game. They're like, oh, let me see.
That is so cool. I mean, we would just say it joking around, especially when you make big plays. But, that's pretty cool. When people are watching, all over the country, and still rooting for their alma mater, it never leaves you.
Yeah, definitely.
One of my buddies graduated with, we had on the podcast, Mark Zarther. He's the chief strategy officer of the Florida Panthers.
Okay.
And he got a picture of you down in, I think, two or one of the games. He was at the national championship game. And he goes, "Is this Vinci?" And he's got a picture of you during pregame warm-up. I go, "Absolutely." I go, "You got to go up to him and say, hey, Westwood High grad and all this." And, it's too much commotion and all that stuff, and whatnot. But he would text saying, the games he was watching and all that. We played football together at Westwood. He was a hockey player too. But so cool. I mean, it never leaves a Westwood grad of how proud they are, how much they're still checking in and rooting for, their teams. But, he got a picture of it, and I'll see if I can post it on the episode. But, yeah, he was there on the ground level, watching you doing your warm-up in the national championship. Westwood grad. But want to talk a little bit about Westwood. Us being a Westwood podcast, be remiss not to. But, talk a little bit about, your story of Westwood. Where did you grow up in Westwood? What elementary school did you go to?
So I live right behind Donahue School.
Nice.
So I'd have a short little walk to school every morning. but it's kind of nice now. I've got a couple buddies, Weeman,
Yeah.
Quinny.
Yeah.
Quinny moved into the area, so that's nice. He's not a handling kid anymore.
Is this Jake Quinn?
Yep.
Oh, great kid. Coached him in hockey. And John Quinn right now having a year. Kid playing
playing
soccer,
lacrosse now.
Playing lacrosse. Yeah, got his first goal. We called it the other day. Great kid. And I don't know if you saw the save he had in overtime. So Westwood won in overtime versus
I
King
did
Philip,
see that.
But they don't win in overtime if he doesn't make a breakaway save. Ice cold.
Want to know?
Total stud. But great area. Like I had some friends right around there, Fearing Drive, and then
that's what I'm on.
You're in Fearing, yeah. And it's a great area. You got Norfolk close by, the golf course and whatnot.
Yeah, I worked there for
Did
summer.
You? Yeah. Nice, yeah. And then Islington, so basically everyone considers that part of town Islington. People are very prideful.
Slingtown's like the capital of Westwood, from what I've heard.
I call it the hockey capital of Westwood.
That's very true.
Thomas Hamilton, there.
They kind of claim that, I believe.
I'll give it to them. Mike Welby, Westwood legend. He was, from there. There were Giros, both Chris Senior, Chris Junior, Slingtown guys. But how special is that? How prideful are guys that grow up in the Slingtown area?
Oh yeah, they. Morrison Park too. That's right there. The Little League days were great.
CVS.
Yeah. You got Neroli there now.
You got Neroli, yeah.
That's a must-hit spot whenever I'm home.
So good. Yeah.
Islington pizza too.
How good?
I got some specials there.
Oh yeah, they gotta get some of these restaurants gotta capitalize and get like the Joe Vinci. So, if you had to pick like what your favorite would be, at Islington or Neroli, what would it be? Because we'll give them the hint.
Ooh, so the Islington, one of my favorite things there is the Thai chicken pizza. Buck put me on this one. That's my favorite there.
Yeah.
At Neroli, their cheesesteak is awesome.
So good.
Their Italian's great.
Yeah.
I've had their
you talk about
honey.
the sub, the steak at the market. Yeah.
I haven't had a sit-down meal there, but their subs are.
Yeah. Do you throw a little mayonnaise in there on a steak and cheese?
More just onions and peppers on there. Yeah.
I'm telling you, throw a little mayo in there, game changer. It adds to the flavor, and
I'll have to try it.
It's a flavor explosion. But shout out Mike DeSaro. He's a Westwood High football grad, 2 times Super Bowl champ, and doing great things over at Neroli. And playing football growing up in town, you guys had such a great core of kids, playing. Even your brother's great too. What were some of your earliest memories of playing football here in the town of Westwood?
So I started in 7th grade with Coach Hoff.
Really? The middle school?
Yeah, middle school. So 7th and 8th grade. Coach Tommy, who's now at the high school, another Westwood guy. So he actually came up to the high school kind of with my grade, I believe.
Yeah.
But those mornings or those afternoons out on Thurston on the baseball field, I remember every single practice we'd start off with our jumping jacks, our little warm up, and then we had half a football field back there, and it would always be 2 laps around.
Yeah.
But say after one of the games, Hoff's like, all right, we had 3 penalties, 5 offsides. All right, you guys got 10.
Hysterical. He's a legend. So he was one of my Pop Warner coaches because his son was the grade above me, and he wears, I think, this jacket still to this day. Do you ever notice how he wears? Sometimes he wears a Westwood football puffy jacket, and it looks like he's probably 25 years old. That was from our Pop Warner, our A team.
Really,
and,
that's
stacked
awesome.
team. We went all the way to the New England Championship. Our quarterback was a quarterback at Duke. We had a bunch of different, Westwood High Hall of Fame players on that team, but ultimately lost to Everett. And Everett back then was a powerhouse. You look at these kids, the Nuzzo brothers. They had just so many different kids on that team. But he was a coach then, and then when I saw that he's still coaching, I was like, this guy, he's incredible.
He does baseball still, right?
He's been coaching baseball. He was an assistant coach when I was in high school 20 years ago, and that's his background. So he was a pitcher at UConn.
Yeah, I knew that.
But had always been kind of an assistant coach for football, and he's so good at getting you prepared for games, but also life. And just kind of making sure you hold yourself accountable, making sure that no one takes those shortcuts. Mm-hmm. And he's teaching you that at the middle school level, where by the time you get into practicing with Coach Pindell, he's setting you up for the same system and all that, but also what coach is expecting out of you, in terms of putting a hard-working team together. But that's a great shout-out, just an all-time Westwood legend. And seventh grade, so you didn't no Pop Warner for you?
No, I mean, it never really existed, at least for the town of Westwood.
Yeah.
I know some guys will go out to like Needham and Dedham. I think Greg Pop and Tony Addis did the Dedham stint. But yeah, so it was really, I don't even know when I kind of stopped flag football, but yeah, you're playing football this year, all right. So
you're looking at, you started in the middle school, and you're looking at these old photos of your old man, number 55, and my goodness, how big was he in football equipment? Like when you see
yeah, they got those, I don't know, those pads, those shoulder pads and 90s that go
get the neck roll going, and you had the bull, the bull string on the helmet and whatnot. But what a legend he was. Great player at Westwood High School, captain. He went to Dartmouth, long snapper at Dartmouth too. So, would you look through any of those picture books before your playing days to say, hey, that's someone I want to be someday?
Yeah. So me and my brother, we'd kind of joke with him a little bit. We'd be like, yeah, go get that, what do you call it, like VHS tape from downstairs and throw that on. So we'd put that on and kind of watch some of his games and be like, he's like, oh yeah, interception here. It's just, but yeah, I think, the good thing with him was that he never really forced me to play football. Yeah. He helped me get into long snapping, which is great. Because I actually didn't play football my freshman year, which was COVID.
Wow.
So I kind of came in as sophomore, like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah. You were disinterested.
Yeah.
You kind of lost your momentum.
Yep.
Through COVID.
So another person I want to talk about is Bill Crabtree. He was one of the more impactful coaches for you. Can you talk us a little bit about what him and his son as coaches meant for you in your long snapping game?
Yeah, so Coach Crabtree, absolute legend. He can probably recount some of the games I played in, my dad played in, better than we can. So he actually coached my dad in Pop Warner football. Yeah. So that's kind of where the connection was made. So kind of after my sophomore year, if I remember correctly, I did punts for like one game in Dedham and then had a couple sail over the punter, and that was my stint for
the non-spiral, just chucking it.
Yeah, just kind of no look. So definitely a lot of improvement from there. But he told my dad, he's like, listen, like Joe's got a good frame. My son played at Villanova, like he should start working out with him. So that winter, after my sophomore season, I went to the camp with Kevin, and he helped me out a lot. So that was really where I got my start, and I continued working with Kevin a bunch, improving here and there. Did all those like ranking camps and stuff, and when I found my way to Notre Dame, so Stephen Crabtree, Kevin's brother, he was an equipment manager at Notre Dame. So my first semester on campus, he was graduating then. So he actually got hold of the special teams coordinator and his analyst and was like, hey, you guys got to like check this kid out. So the Crabtrees really kind of put it all together, and I just showed up and snapped and worked, and it all kind of worked out, I guess.
When I had asked Bill about it, he said that his son was there and said to, it might have been the specialist coach, said, have you checked out this kid Vinci yet? And the coach, from what Bill was saying, what, you mean the number 2 snapper in the nation? And he's like, is he interested? Yeah, get him out here, and because it sounded like you had looked at a bunch of schools like at that point.
Yeah, that's just kind of how it goes. And Crabtree just kind of like gave that little nudge, like, hey, you guys.
It sounded like the coach was like, get him out here right now, because like you were on all their radars, but like they figured like especially too, like a lot of these teams have 4 or 5 guys in the mix, mm-hmm. So it's like. Sometimes it's more fruitful situations at other schools, but hey, if you get an opportunity at the number 2, number 3, top 5 long snapper in the nation, you get him out to have a conversation. Mm-hmm. So you went out there. What was that experience like when you were being recruited and checking out that location? And ultimately, what made you decide Notre Dame versus these other top programs that were recruiting you as well?
So my first visit to Notre Dame was in April of my junior year. So that was just me and my dad who were able to make that.
Yeah.
So that was like really special. It's cool when you have the old man, he's geeking out over holding the Heisman Trophy and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But that was like kind of a wow moment for me. Being there that first time, and then I came back in June for a camp so they could see me in person snap.
Yeah.
That was good, but it was a short trip because I was going up to Michigan the day after. But I kind of set myself up on that one. I'm like, hey, listen, like I'd love to come out for a game. I know you guys are playing Ohio State this year. Could I possibly do that? And they're like, yeah, sounds good. So I had been talking to BC here and there. I ended up getting an offer in July. So I had a visit set up for the week after the Ohio State game if things didn't go as they did as they went with ND. But they kind of sat me down after that game. They're like, listen, like we want to give you a preferred walk-on spot. I'm like, all right, I'm here. So
Incredible.
The difference for me, I would just say BC is kind of close to home.
Yeah.
Not that that's a bad thing, but and the other schools I was looking at, like they had different situations. They were going to wait till January, and that just didn't fit my plan. But Notre Dame's just different. Like you can't replicate that type of college football in this area of the East Coast. Like it's a different beast. Maybe if you throw the New England Patriots in the NCAA, you could pass with that, but being there and being in that environment versus other college games I've been to, it was like wow.
Yeah, and you wanted to compete for a national championship.
Yeah,
and Notre Dame every year they're right up at the top. You know, and what a great choice. I mean, you turned down scholarships to be a preferred walk-on, knowing a lot of things can happen, and then you earned that scholarship this upcoming season, which is incredible. That's awesome. But out of Westwood High School, folks, wasn't no prep school or private school. Did it out of Westwood High School, and obviously Bill Crabtree, what an impactful person he was. His son as well. At what point, and it sounded like that was your sophomore year where you really just kind of started towards the end. At what point did you start seeing some good momentum with your snaps where you thought, actually, this seems like a natural fit and, could solidify my future with it?
Yeah, so my first, that kind of moment where I was like, oh, like this could be a possibility. That summer, I went to a snapping camp with the Rubio guy. He does a bunch of stuff for that with ranking and stuff. And I did really well. I was like, okay, we'll see where I'm at, where I get put in the rankings. And I happened to fall at like 13 or something like that. And after that moment, it kind of hit me, I'm a lot better than I thought I was. And after that, I just kind of kept going to those, improving here and there, and working with Kevin. And then once after my junior season was when I went to a couple of camps that year. I was in touch with BC, Harvard, Dartmouth, a couple other FCS schools. But like that winter, I'd be just hanging out in class and I'd get a text from Coach Pindell and it would be like, hey, so-and-so from Penn State's here. Or, so-and-so from Ohio State's in here. I'm like, oh, I'm in S block right now, just hanging out. I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, these are schools that haven't really come through the high school since the Mike McFarland days. Incredible. I mean, that's certainly an interesting text to get.
Yeah.
At that point, I'd just say, hey, whoever the teacher is, I gotta go. Penn State's here. I mean, if they don't understand, then what was your experience like at Westwood High School? How much? Talk a little bit about that. I'd imagine it was a positive one. And we always like to talk about some of the teachers, impactful teachers, who were, if any, teachers that left a positive impact on you during your time at Westwood.
Yeah, so Westwood High School, I mean, the whole school system was absolutely awesome. I had a blast.
Yeah.
through elementary school to middle school to, high school. Miss Patton, I had her for 2 different classes throughout my time there. She was awesome. AP US history, and then I believe my last semester at Westwood, we had some crime in America.
Yeah.
We went to the jail, did a field trip there. That was odd, but overall an awesome experience with her. She was one of my favorite teachers. Class was engaging. And then Miss Jellinghouse I had for ceramics. I did ceramics for 3 years at Westwood. I don't know, it's just kind of fun, mess around a little bit, make some cool things, be a little bit creative. So
absolutely, good distraction from just the rigors of your academics, and also it's fun. It's a nice hobby to come up with. It's funny. I mean, these are 2 teachers' names that we've heard a few times from our student athletes. So it's they're doing something special there at 200 Manhattan Street.
And then even leaving early was not easy for me, nor was it easy for anybody at the school because they didn't know So Miss Davenport, Miss Marcus, all of guidance really helped push that along, which was great because I had my mom was the mastermind behind this whole thing, and I had no idea what was kind of going on.
It's so smart to do that, where you got a head start, and you could focus on your academics and whatnot. But really, acclimate. You are far away from home. And I mean, it's not like we're talking about you're on the West Coast, but you're far enough where certainly going to get homesick. But what really seems probably helpful is your teammates are going through the same thing. And, when you are with people who are going through the same thing, it's a good, bonds are formed, But what a unique decision, and also a smart decision, and paid off certainly.
I want to ask about your last high school football game at Flayhive, a win on Thanksgiving Day over Holliston to clinch the TVL. How special was that for you, and not only for you, but to do it alongside your brother Mario?
Oh, it was absolutely awesome. I had all my best buddies there on that team, and up until then, I had never beaten Holliston. We came close our my sophomore year. I believe we lost 28-22.
Was that was that a spring game then?
No.
That wasn't the spring season.
That was a fall game. And then 2023, they whooped us 42 to something. So that definitely left a bad taste in my mouth. After that game, we're not really fans of Holliston. I'm still not personally.
Love that. Once a rival, always a rival.
Yeah. I mean, that game, I just remember, it's kind of game's pretty much over, and we throw a fade to Crowley in the end zone, and he mosses the guy one-handed, and Mario's over there tapping on his head, pointing at him. I'm like, oh, great. So memories like that are really what stick out to me. And, playing with my brother at Westwood was awesome. We'd have our little beef at practice every now and then, but we actually switched positions, I believe, when I messed up my thumb because I had to club it. So Paul had me taped up with this fist. We just kind of had to roll with it.
Could you snap with the club? No.
Eventually it turned into just Paul taped me up every day, but even then I couldn't hold the football correctly.
Wow.
Yep.
So who would snap in those situations?
Drew Donahue.
No kidding.
Yep.
No kidding. Wow. So you were basically get through the season, then let it heal, and then get right back to that mix.
Yep.
Yeah. That's funny. And what were some of your favorite memories outside of that Holliston win, big win, TVL clinching win? What were some memories that come to mind with that were special for you?
Beating Quincy was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah,
because that was I forget where we lost. We might have lost to Ashland the week before them, or Wayland, or our first game Weymouth. But we lost 2 really close games.
Yeah.
My sophomore and junior year to them. That was once again we were 1 score away, 1 play away.
You guys had shootouts with Quincy.
Yeah.
I remember at one point at halftime the score was 36-30, something like
insane.
that.
Yeah. So we really beat the brakes off them, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then Hopkinton on the grass field after Drew got tossed.
Really? The heck did he do?
He got a targeting call against Ashland, I believe it was.
Oh, yeah.
You can't hit people hard nowadays, he got ejected for a game after that.
Yeah.
So we had Elliott playing safety back there. He was kind of like our quarterback on the defense. That was another shootout. I believe we won.
Is this Elliott Harris?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Shout out Elliott.
TDL MVP baseball, not a big deal.
So
great football number too, by the way. Was he 45?
Yeah, he's beast returner. I think he cribbed one on the first play of the game against Norwood, if I remember correctly.
Nice.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah. And then I remember this one play where, Mario just wrecked somebody, and then I have a video of same play, me throwing somebody on the ground right after that.
The Bash Brothers, huh? Were you guys lined up next to each other, or were you on right side of the line, he's on the left, or vice versa?
Yeah, he was the left guard, and I had Ollie Gannon to my left, so I was a tackle.
So you must have loved just, from the guards' perspective, they must have loved just the kick out blocks and the pulling and all that stuff, and then playing tackle, getting downhill on sweeps and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, would you get after the corners? Who are your favorite people to get after, especially on those tosses?
The screens were a lot of fun.
Oh, because I slam blocks.
Yeah, I've cleaned like a couple tiny corners. May or may not have been a block in the back, but wasn't called. So
people don't understand how challenging it is to play corner, because you are locked up against their best receivers, but you're also the guy that is going to have to blow up a fullback, or a tackle coming out of the backfield. And, to really do it effectively, you got to basically get downhill and you got to blow it up where the linebackers can come down or the safety can come in and fill that play. Not my favorite part of football, which I'm sure you guys love, because it's like you could just see it in their eyes. Yeah. This kid does not want this.
I mean, I'd run routes against Ben Morrison and Xavier Watts, so I know they have a tough time going up against me.
Yeah, it's brutal. But that's cool. I mean, those are fun memories. And those bus rides, I'm sure that bus ride home from Hopkinton, a nice 45-minute ride.
Yep.
Nothing better than that. The boys are all fired up.
100%.
But I mean, that's pretty cool. Now you, your dad, and your brother can all say TVL champs. And do you have an appreciation, especially the years prior when you're playing a really good Holliston team? They're blowing, they're blowing you guys out because they're sending kids, multiple kids at Division I level year over year, and then you guys win, and you really appreciate how hard it is to do that. Like, did you have a different perspective, coming out on top your senior year after, fighting hard for those years beforehand?
Yeah, I think he definitely, it took a lot of work. I mean, in my years past, we had some really good leaders on that team, like Brendan Donahue. Yeah. Like he was one of my good friends. Yeah. Great player, great quarterback, good punter as well.
Is he really?
Yeah,
no kidding. Yeah.
So I think the main thing with that was just we've been so close. Like they're not that great. We didn't execute that well.
Yeah.
So being able to do that, kind of end that drought was spectacular for us. And to do it in the fashion that we did, rub it in their face a little bit.
At home,
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Thanksgiving special, because I don't even know if I play a 12 o'clock kickoff. I mean, that's a 10 a.m. kickoff, but it's just different.
Yeah. It's funny because we had Bill Irvin and Dave Whalen on, who were part of the first ever Westwood Holliston Thanksgiving game.
Really?
And similar to what you're kind of saying, they rival with Holliston, beforehand, even though they hadn't played on the Thanksgiving game. And one of the guys, Xavier, if I don't have the name right, but Laflemme, and then they won, and they said, I'm going to have the leg of Laflemme for turkey today. They just kept having a good laugh about, the win and whatnot. But
even with my dad and stuff, like he's like, yeah, I never lost to Holliston my senior year. He's like, yeah, they ran 36 yards on us, and that was it. I'm like, or it might have been negative. They might have had negative yards.
I believe I saw the score of that game, and it was a blowout. I think he won like a 50-something to nothing game.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, it was quite a team they had. Your dad also Super Bowl champ. Pretty impressive. Who are some of the best leaders you played with at Westwood?
Yeah. It being only football, I thought for me personally, playing alongside Brendan Donegan was awesome, because you got to think, like, my sophomore year, like, it was tough. Like, JT, John O'Shea, Trent, like, those guys really kind of pushed the program forward. Yeah. And it was a lot of hard work for us, because we kind of had to move on from the past and create a new identity for this team. I mean, we've won the TVL 2 years in a row now. So I think that's something that those guys may have not have gotten a piece of, right? Like, they might not have been on one of those teams, but they definitely pushed us in that direction to where, you know, that's got to be the next expectation now, is TVL championships, not, you know, just trying to compete for that.
Yeah. I saw Drew at Andrew. Excuse me.
Brendan,
yeah. Saw Brendan at in Holliston, you know, this past one. And he was celebrating with Drew as if he was part of the team, and he is. He cemented kind of the framework of these guys and going out and doing what they did. And, you know, what an exceptional quarterback he was. Great pocket passer. He could move too. But, man, that kid could sling the ball. Yeah. You know, he was a fun player to watch. And you guys had some great receivers too.
Oh,
you know,
yeah, definitely. At, like,
Crowley, you know, Toole was kind of a younger guy than McDaniels, you know, great receiver. Some great running backs, a lot of, you know, depth as well.
Oh, yeah.
It was a fun team to watch. But you guys did solidify the framework of showing these guys how to do it and how to chase after a TVL title and then go back to back.
Yeah.
Winning one is hard enough. Going back to back is very difficult. Because
I mean, that was really cool to watch. I had practice that morning, so I didn't catch the 10 a.m. I watched it all start to finish after then.
That's crazy. You had practice on the day of Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yep. Christmas as well.
that's what it takes, folks.
Yeah.
It's if you're not doing it, your competition is, and you need to stay a leg up.
That's our edge.
And it gives you the confidence going into the games. Like, hey, this is why we practice on Thanksgiving and Christmas, is because we're playing in the national championship game and others aren't. You know, some of these teams, they're probably getting 4 or 5 days off, and then they go out in that next game, and you know, the other team's running circles around them. You know?
That was our thing for Georgia. Like, those guys, I think, got to go home, I believe. We were there all throughout Christmas, so
running wind sprints. You know?
Oh yeah, guys were going at it at practice. You get sick and tired of playing against each other for a few weeks. You're ready to go. So by then we were all ready.
That's incredible. And you're now home for a few weeks.
Yep.
What are some of the things you're looking forward to taking advantage of while being back home in Westwood?
Yeah, definitely looking forward to. You know, I got to see a bunch of the buddies. Went out golfing last night. A lot of fishing. Gotta get my saltwater stripers in, because we obviously don't got that in Indiana. I'm hitting the spots.
Love that.
Yep.
The Islington pizzas and the rollies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I could ship one of those, like, out there. They don't put it right on campus.
Well, just have nice. You know, Chip or Buck bring one out when you see it. You know? But when people are out in South Bend, what's the go-to spots out there?
Ooh, there's this one place, Rocco's, a little Italian spot.
Nice.
That's one of my favorites. I got to do some more exploring.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's just a good sign. It means you practicing a ton, you know.
Yeah. Well, they also spoil us with food there, so I kind of live out of the facility.
And also some camps coming up you helping out with?
Yeah. Yep. So I am hosting part of a Mass League camp the 18th with my former teammate, or my teammate Will Bartell, who's a kicker at Notre Dame from Rhode Island. Kevin Crabtree and Will played at Villanova as well, so one of their teammates as well. And yeah, really looking forward to that. Got a few private lessons planned as well, so gonna be a good little summer of. I heard we got a fair amount of kids showing up to the specialist camp too, so I'm excited for that.
Nice. And what advice, you know, last couple of questions I want to ask you, you know, what advice would you give to Westwood High, or even, you know, kids who are playing football that want to play Division I college, that want to play at a, you know, top Division I program? It's few and far between are able to do that, ever do that at Westwood High School. But what are things that someone can do to, you know, to lay the framework of potentially doing that?
I would say, kind of like I was talking about my snapping earlier, your routine is everything. You know, And your choices will reflect like your values. Your choices reflect what you value. So, if you really want to be serious about something, whether it's football, baseball, hockey, school, whatever, do everything to your best ability. And one of those things too is grades. Like, I see a lot of kids who are good football players or good athletes, but sometimes grades don't cut it. But surround yourself with good people who want you to succeed, and then you just got to be working when others aren't. Get your edge and kind of take advantage of that.
It's a great answer.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. And those, when you mentioned putting in that work and then practicing on Thanksgiving, practicing on Christmas, does that give you a certain level of confidence going into those games?
Definitely. I mean, like we don't care. We'll practice whenever.
Yeah.
It's kind of that mentality. And even at Westwood, like, I think, with the summertime lifts, nobody wants to get up they wake up earlier than I do there. It's like 6 a.m. to go lift. Like, nobody really wants to do that, but if you want to be good, that's what it's going to take. So I think that with Coach Pindell and Westwood football, that kind of got that mentality ingrained in myself and my teammates here.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny because we were covering the playoff hockey game. It was a tie game going into overtime. And Evan asked me, as a former coach, what are you saying to these guys? And I'm like, well, not really saying much outside of just sometimes you got to remind the team of you practice at 5 a.m. They don't. That and it's similar to kind of what you're saying where you have an edge. You practice at 5 a.m. You wake up in the freezing cold. You shovel off your car to get to a rink that's 25 minutes away. And then after you're done, you got to drive 25 back, get ready for school, go through a full day's worth of classes, get your homework done.
That's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot. So to remind, sometimes you need the reminder, of why you do it and why you have that edge on others. And you mentioned Coach Pindell. How special was it playing for him, and how important was he throughout your Westwood experience and ultimately going to Notre Dame?
Yeah, I think it's tough to kind of find somebody around here who's not a Notre Dame fan.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up as one. I don't always love saying that because I feel like it's a lame answer, but he's been an awesome coach, an awesome role model for myself and my brother. So having him as a solid pillar of Westwood football throughout that it's been awesome. You see him in the school and all that, but he makes sure that when we go out on the field, it's all business. And our other coaches too, like Coach Milligan, he's not here anymore, but I still get those occasional texts from him. Coach Chiz, he's working at Norfie. Coach Tommy, all those guys. They were absolutely great. In both dealing with coaches, like getting those texts from Coach Pindell, and also making sure that we were ready and that like we were having fun and enjoying football. Yeah.
And then lastly too, you kind of hinted on it earlier in the beginning of your season. With Notre Dame, just your inner circle of your family, how special have they been throughout, not even just the season this year, but way, way, way before then, taking you to practices, games, being that person that can, there for the positive and the negatives of a season and whatnot, and throwing your brother and your grandparents in there too. How special has that support system been for you, and how important has that support system been for you into getting you to where you are today, a scholarship athlete on Notre Dame and a big player on the team right now?
I would say, I've been beyond blessed with my family, and the amount of stuff that they give up to both allow myself and my brother to enjoy some of the things we do. I would not be here without them, with the amount of time and effort, whether that was AAU basketball, travel hoops, like going all over the place, driving back and forth. It's not easy, and I would say I appreciate that a lot more now being away, looking back on stuff like that. And like they obviously make life a lot easier when they tell you go where you want.
Yeah.
So kind of having their approval, and having my brother around, being in a hardworking family that we are, it's kind of just ingrained. You see mom and dad always out working, putting in the most. I mean, my dad worked overnight shifts forever, so we'd always have to be quiet coming home from school.
Always catching up.
Yeah, and even just having my brother, like we'd work out all the time. In practice, obviously. So it's something that is very special to me, and they still make sacrifices to come out to all the games that we have.
Incredible.
Still make it tomorrow, or go to Mario's and then hop on a flight the next day and come up to South Bend. So I don't know how they would do that, and then
they got the jerseys on too. I love it. It's awesome.
Yep.
Really cool. Yeah. Anything? Well, that's awesome. Really appreciate you coming on to talk and tell your story. It's an amazing story, and it's just begun. It's there's still many chapters to come. And like I said earlier, we could not be more proud. Being a part and living in the town of Westwood, seeing you doing big things on the national stage, and it's going to be a lot more games ahead too that we're looking forward to. But Joe, thank you so much for coming on and telling your story. And I think we might have to do a round 2 coming up in the near future when you get a ring on your finger. And
sounds good to me.
We'll talk about that.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Well, folks, thank you for tuning in. Episode 36 of the Wolverine Report. Looking forward to seeing you all on the next one.